Hello and welcome to the Monk Reads No Sleep. Today we have, I work at a company that destroys classified documents, and I came across one that has changed me ever since I read it. Covert agencies have been hiding new technology from us. I can prove it. Some backstory, I work at a company that focuses entirely on destroying classified documents. We go through a plethora of background checks and interviews to make sure that we're trustworthy, so I'm taking a massive risk even writing this. I'm hoping that because I'm keeping myself anonymous, I won't be traced. I can't tell you where my company is, the name, or what agency we work for, because they would be able to find me. Anyways, I don't usually give the documents I'm destroying much of a second thought. We use industrial-sized shredders, and everyone works quickly, so I tend to turn my mind off and just shred. But this folder was odd right off the bat. It was out of place. The material was ink black and shiny. As cheesy as it sounds, it looked straight out of a sci-fi movie. I don't know what overcame me, but I felt like I needed to see what was inside. When no one was looking, I stuffed the folder into my waistband and took a bathroom break. When I was in the bathroom, I opened the folder, and to my surprise, there was a single piece of paper, double-sided. It was nothing special, just a transcript written in 12-point font. The date was weird, though. I thought it must have been a typo, because the year on it was 2043. And unless this was some failed attempt at a screenplay or sci-fi story, that wasn't possible. I know you probably won't believe me, but the agency we work for is the real deal. They don't make things up, and they work on very serious shit. And that's why I haven't been able to sleep. It's not physically possible for that paper to be here, unless time travel already exists. On top of that, the transcript in the folder is highly unsettling. The events it speaks of are also only dated as 16 years from now, which in the grand scheme of things is not very far away at all. I've decided to share this here because I'm hoping someone can give me a more plausible reason for that folder's existence. I hope to God my theory is wrong, because if it isn't, what the future holds is horrifying. The original folder and transcript are shredded, but I managed to take a photo of the document and email it to my personal computer. What I've written below is exactly what was on this transcript. If this post gets removed, they have found me. Body Host Trial Log 34, Subject 7, 2043-05-09. I can still remember when the first microchip was created. They had been invented 5 years ago, in the year 2038, by Incom, a high-tech firm focused on body regeneration and prolonging life. The microchips, which were fittingly called Body Host, had been built with a singular purpose: to allow someone to take control of another body that was not theirs, preferably younger or more fit. This concept had been dreamt of from time to time in old sci-fi comics and novels, but had never come to fruition until now. It was, to say the least, earth-shattering. But it came at a price. The chips were extremely expensive, and bodies were hard to find. This meant two things. Only the rich could afford to body jump, and usable bodies were always in demand. The former wasn't particularly problematic, because most projects in their early stages are only available to the 1%. The latter was more of an issue because it meant a new doorway was opened for the poor, the weak, or the desperate to escape their respective struggles. The first year went smoothly enough, with a handful of the ultra-rich taking over the bodies of some test subjects who joined on the promise of a handful of money. The chips did have their limitations. Body jumping was temporary, and the users would experience small side effects once they had returned to their original vessels. On top of this, if the user's host body died, they would die as well. This was seen as a failsafe, a method to stop users from being reckless with a body that was not theirs. These trials did not raise any red flags, save one subject who forgot how to speak English once they had returned. Regardless, this was chalked up as a mechanical error, and body host microchips began to make their way into the mainstream market. Year 2 was mostly uneventful, but one crucial change would impact the future of body host. Like any product that is difficult to acquire, demand increases. It was inevitable that the general population would see these life-altering microchips and want their chance to body jump. Because of this, black market hackers raided body host depots to steal microchips that they would later sell for astronomical prices. Once the company got word of this, they rapidly deployed teams of mercenaries to their factories and warehouses, but the wheels had already been set in motion. The same hackers who had managed to steal body host chips dissected them one small piece at a time, creating blueprints to manufacture their own versions, which they called half-hosts. Once these plans had been created, almost every underground electronics dealer had a copy. They may have seemed like an honorable endeavor on the surface, but it was far from positive. These kingpins, who now had more money than they could ever spend, had used cheap replacement parts to substitute rare earth metals and circuitry to build their body host clones. Those who used these microchips were playing a game of Russian roulette, as the side effects of a defective chip could be permanent. Now that year 2 was over, there was an increased number of half-hosts on the market, and the demand for vacant bodies grew exponentially. Users resorted to desperate measures to fill this need, and what ensued was terrifying. The homeless, prostitutes, and other rejects of society were taken against their will and possessed, only to be later abandoned on the streets, with brain-altering injuries and other side effects. There were whispers in the shadiest bars and nightclubs that some psychos had even begun using half-hosts on unsuspecting animals, only to experience cerebral hemorrhages and mild dementia. As the rich continued to use their body hosts to walk a mile in another man's shoes, society's underbelly committed heinous acts upon their fellow citizens. There were not enough problems for the government to outlaw possession and body jumping, but that would soon change. Year 4 was when the body host industry began to have an extremely negative impact on society. This was mostly because of a new development that had occurred, once again caused by the same underground hackers who had created half-hosts. In some trials, they had found a way to tweak the circuitry on the microchips to allow users to avoid death, even if it happened to their body host. This new innovative tactic began being added to every new half-host chip, plunging the users into a world of chaos. Underground fighting rings popped up, with the kidnapped and homeless bodies being used as cannon fodder. Users who wanted to know what death was like began committing suicide. The thoughtful ones would hide in a dark corner with a shotgun in their mouth, while the psychopaths and fanatics would level a street block with bomb vests or drive onto a busy freeway. As more and more bodies began turning up and non-user casualties increased, the government decided to step in. Body host, half-host, and any other form of body-jumping technology was only to be used in regulated facilities by approved individuals. What the government did not realize was that they had invariably taken away what society's most desperate individuals had seen as their one escape from a monotonous life. To add to this, the rich were not happy that the poor had spoiled their fun. Why should they stay in some boring government facility while some slob could go on an adrenaline-filled killing spree? Year 5 was when the rich broke into the underground microchip market. Year 5 was when a gang of terrorists described as body hosts stormed the government building and murdered the entire parliament. Year 5 was when all hell broke loose. With a broken government and little to no regulation, body host facilities became easy targets for well-armed factions that had now popped up all over the city. Microchip factories were taken over and began to produce thousands of body hosts a day, flooding the market. Car accidents, shootings, suicides, and fistfights were commonplace, and those who had been lucky enough not to have been kidnapped, killed, barricaded themselves in their homes, or fled. As food and water became scarce, the neighboring cities put up military blockades around us, not allowing anyone in or out, and killing any of those who attempted it. It seems they knew how fast this electronic plague spread, and wanted nothing to do with it. This takes us to now. I lost my son to a body host murderer, and my wife is missing. I can't sleep. My right eye has developed an awful twitch, and I found myself overcome by random panic attacks now that I have no one but my thoughts for company. My food and water are dwindling, and I lost power yesterday. All I can smell is my own filth and the eye-watering stench of the burning buildings nearby. I am truly at a breaking point. I'm packing my bags. I'm going to make a run for it. I woke up abruptly as my body host was hit by a car full of looters. It felt anticlimactic to have made the decision to try and escape the city. I think I should have opted for suicide instead. My friend told me the feeling was one of a kind. Regardless, I'm quite glad to have been chosen to take part in Body Host's final trial, which was done on a city-wide scale. Not our city, of course. The company executives had chosen an isolated one across the world for that, and our military ensured that there would be no loose ends. I decided that when the committee voted on whether they should introduce this new technology to the public, I would most likely say no. If that city had crashed and burned, I can only imagine what it would do to ours. Maybe someday it would happen, if not in my lifetime, then perhaps in that of my children. But if that was the case, I always have my villa on the coast of Italy. End of trial. User update. I truly fear for my safety. Ever since I posted this, I haven't felt like myself. I have been sleeping less, eating less, and I haven't gone to work. Even though I want to, it's almost as if my body won't let me. I feel my sanity slipping away from me. I'm too afraid to call the police, and I don't want to accidentally implicate my friends and family. If you've read this far, please, for the love of God, don't speak of what I've posted here to anybody. Save a copy of the transcript to your computer and remove any evidence that you visited this post. They could be watching any one of you as we speak. After I write this, I'm going to destroy my computer and cover my tracks. God help us all. Thank you for listening. All credit for writing goes to MobbDeepvsWuTang from the website Reddit of the subreddit r/no sleep. Thank you, and I will see you next time.